This is my 2018 KTM 250 XCW. I bought this bike in December of 2017 and I have about 90 hours on it. I've been intending to do a full review video before now, but just now getting around to it. During the 90 hours I've spent on the bike, I've had the opportunity to find most of its pros and cons, I think. We'll start off with the things that I really like about the bike. The engine is fantastic. Of course, it has that unmistakable two-stroke sound and produces outstanding usable power. It has a counterbalancer that cancels out vibration and feels extremely smooth and rev happy. The engine has very luggable power down low and it's very difficult to stall, yet it'll scream on top end when you need it. The auxiliary power valve springs along with the power valve preload adjustment give you a lot of control over the performance characteristics of the engine. The W in the XCW stands for wide ratio, and the bike has a very low first gear. I rarely need it, but it's nice to have when I need to get out of a tight spot or just need to lug down low. Another thing I really like about this bike is the chassis. It has a very lightweight chassis that handles and turns with ease with very predictable performance. It goes into and out of turns very nicely and it feels extremely light and nimble. The forks are WP Explorer 48 forks. They're traditional spring forks with the left fork dedicated to compression and the right fork dedicated to rebound. The adjusters are on top and adjustable using these knobs without any tools. I like the forks a lot. I have absolutely no complaints with them. They're relatively soft and they work well for me at my skill level and the type of riding I do. I'm about 170 pounds and like I said, they are soft, so if you're much heavier you may need to get them resprung. I ride a variety of terrain from tight technical single track to very open trails. When I race, I'm a C-class racer. I like the PDS shock. People either love it or hate it. PDS stands for Progressive Dampening System. The PDS suspension connects directly to the swing arm and has no linkage connecting it. And it works for me. Again, my skill level likely doesn't push the setup to its limits, but I have no complaints with the PDS, it just works. The factory spring is relatively soft and it may need to be resprung if you're over 170 or so. I think the XCW is the only bike that KTM still uses the PDS suspension on. The turning radius of the bike is very good and the handlebars seem to turn to a sharper degree than other bikes I've had. That's helpful when negotiating switchbacks or tight turns. I didn't really notice this until I got back on my Yamaha WR250F and noticed that it doesn't turn nearly as sharp. This bike has Brembo brakes on the front and rear and they are simply fantastic. They are the best brakes I've ever had on a dirt bike. I really like the hydraulic clutch. The Brembo hydraulic clutch components are great and I love that buttery smooth feel. In the gas tank, I really like the see-through gas tank. You always know how much gas you have and it's very simple and quick to see. Okay, now let's talk about some of the things that I don't particularly like about this bike. Some of these are a little nitpicky, so I'll give you a warning. The stock seat is very hard. I know I'm supposed to be standing, but I sit occasionally and on those all-day rides it's nice to have a softer seat. So I replaced the stock seat with an Enduro Engineering soft seat. The gas cap design could be improved. It's nearly impossible to remove the gas cap with one hand. So you have to press this orange button in the center and turn while you're pressing the button. It also gets a little sticky if you don't keep a little grease on the gasket underneath the cap. I'm not sure why KTM's not using a simpler screw-on gas cap like other manufacturers. The Mikuni carb. KTM changed over to Mikuni carburetors on these bikes a couple of years ago. I worked with the stock carb for a while and got the jetting very close, but had other issues with it I couldn't resolve. Low end response was lacking and the bike would constantly stall on downhill sections when I had the clutch pulled in. I adjusted the float level a couple of times, but I could never really completely resolve that issue. I ended up replacing it with a Kian 38mm Air Striker carb from JD Jetting, and I've been really happy with the performance of that carburetor. The clutch plates and friction discs, while the Brembo hydraulic components are top-notch, the plates and discs leave something to be desired. I replaced my plates and discs with a Henson FSC kit early on due to the original clutch dragging badly when the engine was hot. Rusting steel screws and bolts. All of my bikes prior to this bike have been Japanese bikes and had stainless steel fasteners. I find it odd that KTM uses these coated steel screws and bolts. When the coating gets nicked or scraped, the fastener starts to rust. I prefer the hardware that the Japanese manufacturers use. Here's some of the bolts and screws on my Yamaha WR250F. Fasteners that come loose. Things are constantly coming loose on this bike. KTMs are somewhat known for fasteners coming loose. Spokes, triple clamp bolts, steering stops. This kickstand screw is constantly working itself loose, and I've had to buy new hardware twice because it fell out on the trail. I check it every time I ride, and yes, I've used Loctite on it. I've tried various versions of Loctite, and the last time I used Loctite 243, and that seems to be holding for now. The oil level bolt. There are a lot of horror stories online of people who have stripped this oil level bolt using the proper torque spec. The threads are very easily damaged. For that reason, I carefully measure the oil I put in and never remove the oil level bolt. KTM should use a sight glass like so many other brands. Here's the sight glass on my 2017 Yamaha WR250F. And my son's KX100 also has a sight glass for oil level. I don't understand why KTM wouldn't just use a sight glass instead of this bolt that causes so many problems. A low compression head. The XCW has a relatively low compression head from the factory, contributing to lackluster low-end performance on these bikes in stock form. I installed the head from a 250SX on this bike to correct that, but there are a few different options for heads to increase the compression ratio, or you can have the stock head machined. No standard skid plate. If your sales slogan is ready to race, your enduro bike should come with a skid plate as original equipment. It's an easy add-on, but it's just a nitpicky thing. I've tried to be very objective with listing out all the things I don't really like about this bike to paint a complete picture. But every bike has a similar list of things that you will learn over time with the bike or learn from others. Every new bike is going to need modifications for your riding style and primary use, and maybe a few modifications to address issues. I don't think these are any worse than any other brand as far as modifications needed for a new bike. In terms of money, the carburetor and the clutch were the most expensive fixes that I had to make, with the seat, the SX head, and skid plate following that. The other modifications I made have been related to personal preference and riding style. In summary, I love riding and racing this bike. I have another bike, but when it's time to load up and go riding, this is the bike that goes on the trailer. Would I buy it again? Yes, I would, but I wish I'd known more about the things I need to fix beforehand. So I hope this video helps others in the market for a bike. We're trying to grow our channel, so if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribe to follow along with our race season. We typically post new videos at least once a week. I always read comments, so let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching.